I know that a lot of conservatives have warmed up to TikTok because they see it as a great tool. I understand that. I will personally never be on TikTok while it is owned by the Chinese Communist Party. And maybe for that reason specifically, because I do believe, to use your words, it bans what it bankrolls abroad. So not only with young people and how much they're on social media or on TikTok in China, which is vastly different than the screen time that American children and students are on these platforms, but also the content that they're being fed is much different in China than it is in America. Can you speak to that, especially on a social media front? Because I think that that is where they're waging their biggest war for the hearts and minds on TikTok.
Well, God bless you for staying off of TikTok. I think that is terrific and very courageous of you to do, and I think necessary. And yeah, I mean, this is the problem with TikTok. TikTok is not just a Chinese company. It's a Chinese company that is adjacent to the Ministry of State Security, which is the spy agency of China. And in fact, the Chinese have said that the TikTok algorithm that guides the company and determines what you see and what you don't see is not just a company secret, it's actually a state secret in China. And TikTok does a lot of joint research with Chinese government agencies that are trying to figure out ways to addict young people in the West to their social media products. So when you're dealing with TikTok, you are literally dealing with the Chinese spy apparatus. And so there's enormous amounts of things that they are doing there that are designed explicitly to wage what they call, these are not my words, these are their words, cognitive warfare on the United States. Part of that is the perception of how they view values and what they value. And as I recount in the book, I have a whole chapter on it. There's a metric they go to evaluate what your values are. And they believe that they can particularly reach young people. I quote Chinese officials saying this. They can reach young people on TikTok by appealing by their emotions. And if they can get a hold of you emotionally, they believe they are now in a position to persuade you and move you politically in the direction they want to go. And this is very sophisticated. This is not, showing videos of Chinese soldiers and tanks marching down the street and thinking young people are going to become CCP members. It's far more sophisticated than that. It's about undermining the sort of traditional notions in America about the traditional family, about values, about individual responsibility, and getting them to think in a collective-minded way. And again, they use emotions to appeal to those baser instincts. So this is the stratagem. This is why I think China is going to fight tooth and nail to give up control over TikTok. I hope that President Trump holds firm. I applaud him for trying to find a solution, meaning if you can pull TikTok away from CCP control and there is an American company that's prepared to be responsible with it, it can be a very powerful tool and helpful tool in a lot of ways for businesses. But under CCP control, you are literally giving our chief adversary access to young people in America, and they are manipulating them. Those are the words they use, not me. They are manipulating our young people to move them in a collective direction, and we know what their goals are there.
Right, and the two biggest things, I would say, socially and politically, they're amplified on TikTok are the Free Palestine stuff, and then to your earlier point, LGBTQIA, queer, everything. So those are the two things I see, at least right now, that they're really drilling into the minds of young people. And this is also very much related to Charlie Kirk, not only the work that he was combating from these influences, but also at the end of the day, his assassination. We don't know everything that we need to know about his assassination. We'll find out more. But when you see people that have made LGBTQ their religion and they are willing to in the name of it, you know something deeper is happening here. There is a much more sophisticated campaign going on for the hearts and minds of young people when they have now put LGBTQ or this whole sense of what they call queer above anything else. And that's disturbing to me. I want to talk about that a little bit and how you see that, because those two narratives, it's so interesting. They're conflicting narratives. Free Palestine and LGBTQ. I know the Queers for Palestine think they're the same thing. They are definitely not. How is China so sophisticated that they can prop up those two concepts that are, completely separated from one another? realistically and logically.
Yeah, those two concepts are only united by one thing, and that is a rejection of Western civilization. In the sense of male and female, that is sort of foundational to the Judeo-Christian tradition. It's foundational to the way our laws are written. It is foundational to so many things. And then, of course, the Free Palestine issue, which is related to, in a lot of respects, to radical Islam, the same thing. And China aligns itself with these movements, not because they particularly have any interest in Islam. In fact, ask the Uyghurs about how the CCP treats those that are of the Muslim faith, and talk to people in the gay rights movement about how things are going in China, because everything I've read is the situation there is far worse than it is in any Western country, or that it certainly is in Israel. So this is an example of the enemies of the left working with whoever is necessary to accomplish their goals. And this is the way that China operates. And what we have to understand with TikTok is so different than any other social media platform, in the sense that, on Twitter X, for example, you choose who you want to follow. Now, you're going to see, they're going to suggest certain things, but you choose effectively who you want to engage with. Same thing on Facebook. You friend or you follow certain people. TikTok is not. TikTok is totally determined by the algorithm. And so they feed you what they want to feed you, and they feed it to you in abundance. And the video aspect of it, the fact that you're not dealing with written word, but you're essentially dealing completely with video, they recognize and see the power of that. That's why they recognize this as such a powerful medium. And we have to understand that, and we have to address that. I would also add, Tomi, that's sort of the air war that China engages in. There's also the ground war. Some of these radical groups that are leading the pro-Palestinian protests across the United States are the same groups that were leading the BLM protests, which are the same groups that are leading some of the very radical trans protests that turn violent. And these are groups like the Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL, is sort of the prime example. Well, guess what? These are organizations that are inspired by, work in unison with, and in some cases are funded by the Chinese Communist Party. These are radical cells in the United States. The other one would be the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, FRSO. They pledged allegiance to the CCP. Their goal is radical revolution in the United States, and they pick these exact same issues you were talking about to try to spur violent, divisive protests in the United States. So there's an air war and there is a ground war in the streets, and they are related, and they involve the CCP in both cases.
Cultural Marxism, you're right. BLM, Antifa, LGBTQ, pro-Palestine, all of these things together, along with the eat the rich, the socialism, the communism, all of it into one big, weird, bundle that doesn't actually make any sense.